We're going to talk about the big and the small because the US is a giant country, but this is an election that will be decided in local places with local issues. So let's start with the big. The Sky poll tracker, this is showing across the nation the average of the most recent polls, who is leading. And if you're in the Harris camp, you'll be happy with this. She's maintaining but also slightly extending this lead. She's now looking like she's going to be +3 up. Now, again, that is across the country. What she needs to do is take that +3 and translate it in this race to 270 electoral college votes. Again, look, big country, but we're concerned with these local places, these swing states. And they break down into 3 areas. You've got the southeast here. You think agricultural, sort of the swampy south. Then you've got the northeast, the Rust Belt, former industrial towns, and another place entirely the southwest, these 2 states, where you think, like, well, immigration might be a concern there. This is sort of desert. It's the bright lights of Las Vegas. These are very, very different locations. So if you're the candidates here, you might be thinking, I've got all these different sets of voters. How am I going to appeal to them? They've got different concerns. Well, actually, there is polling on this in these swing states, and we can tell you, actually, they sort of care about the same things. These are the voters in the swing states rating the policy areas they care about the most, and economy is number 1. Perhaps not surprising after a period of high inflation. But then you've got immigration, democracy, that is sort of threats to democracy, the dangers of polarization, and crime down there. So they more or less agree on what is most important. There might be different flavors to that. The economy looks different in these places, but these are the top concerns. And which candidates do they trust to do best on these? Well, if the bar is in red, they trust Donald Trump. If it's in blue, they trust Kamala Harris. And you can see Donald Trump has that lead on the economy. It's not as big as some might think, and Kamala Harris seems to be catching a little bit on there, but there's big lead for Donald Trump on immigration. Threats to democracy, actually, both candidates are tied there. When it comes to crime, Kamala Harris has that big lead. So they had that big number. These are the sort of smaller, more local numbers. And if you're Donald Trump, you'll be looking at this feeling pretty happy about it. But let's go back to another big number. Favourability, basically, which candidate do people prefer? Do they find them favourable or unfavourable? Again, we're looking at this gap again, and it's a big gap, a big lead for Kamala Harris. So again, her camp will be looking at that. But then you've got to balance that with the swing states, whether they think that is going to translate into those swing states. And that really is the crux of this election. It's the big and the small. How they interact is going to decide who wins the presidency.